Hello and welcome to the Courageous Dialogue series. Today we have a very interesting topic about inner development and the inner development goals and how coaching can contribute to this. And I am so pleased that we have one of our team members with us, actually, Ondine Delavelle, who is an IDG and Inner Development Ambassador. And her and Pernille Plantener, the co-founder of Needs-Based Coaching Institute, will start a conversation with some questions around this topic. And my part is only to hand it over to you two and be curious. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Kirsten. Yeah, and if I may jump in first, Kirsten and I are the co-founders of the Needs-Based Coaching Institute, and by the end of our time today, you'll hear a little bit about what we offer apart from this free call today. And I'd also love to say a few more words about Ondine. I certainly don't know everything about you, Ondine, but I do know that you have a very strong commitment to working with injustice in the world and working for social transformation as well as sustainable transformation in the world. And you've been our person in the field of these inner development goals, which was something quite new to me when I heard about it for the first time last summer. And great was my surprise when I noticed that you were already signed up for the ambassador program at that time. And I'm really looking forward to hearing you explain this. But before I leave the word to you, and I know you have a presentation for us, I'd love to hear by our people here. Do you know what the inner development goals stand for? Let me see a hand if you do. No? Okay, that's what I thought. I wouldn't have known 1 year ago or just 8 months ago. So next question, do you know what the Sustainable Development Goals are, SDG, from the United Nations? This is the thing about, if I show this one, you might recognize it. Something about those colors, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, no, not really. Okay, Ondine, we've got a wonderfully steep learning curve here. And I will, well, when I've said hello to the next person here who just joined us, hey, I want to send it over to you to enlighten us.
Well, thank you. That's a big word. I will come back later on the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goal, really shortly. But thank you for the introduction and the invitation, first of all. Thank you for the participant for coming. And I prepared a preparation, so I will share it. I will not do all the time with the presentation because otherwise it's boring and no interaction. But I just found out it's a bit nicer to have some pictures to illustrate the thing. And I intend to start with a little bit more about my journey because I think it helps to understand why I did land as a IDG ambassador. So now. So I intend, as I say, to talk a bit more about my journey, so where I come from and how I navigated in the past 20 years since I am an adult. Then I will go more into a few words about the SDG and what are the IDGs, the Inner Development Goals. And I will conclude with some reflection on how coaching relates to IDGs. So I grew up in France in a very small village in the countryside. So you can see it on the left bottom side. It is my family, my parents, and my small brother in front of our home. And I was like normal child. I didn't break the rules, not a lot at least. I was among the best pupil at school, not doing waves, being quite performative. And I remember when I was like a teenager, I started to be curious about the world. And one of the something that really catch me, it was the time of the war in ex-Yugoslavia. And I was watching like documentary and stuff, and I was really touched and really angry and really full of not understanding the world. Like, how can human do that? And one of my first idea was, oh, I want to become a war reporter. That has changed, but this curiosity and this sense for injustice, or this stands for justice, and be aware of injustice, was really aware. And one of the first time I break the social rule was after my high school diploma. I said, I'm not going to go directly to university, which was what everybody normally expect. I made a volunteer year in Austria. So that was my first landing in Austria, and I worked in a shelter for asylum seeker. Then I went on finally going to university, studied political sciences, and on my last year, and that is the middle photo, I spent almost a year in Amman, in Jordan. So I learned Arabic, and I made a internship at the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, and that was kind of eyes opening. It was my first time outside of Europe. It was really special, and somehow I let a little bit of my heart and my soul there. I really love the country. And then I came back to Austria. I worked in NGOs in the field of asylum, and the past year almost I worked in an international organization. I have been a trainer, I've been a manager, I did like project management, different thing. And in parallel to that, I also discover NVC, nonviolent communication, and that was also very transformative for me. Maybe like a small anecdote on the side, I was the first registering participant for the first workshop of Kerstin, so there is a special link between us. And yeah, so it helped me in my family. I became a mom. At that time, I was a mom of a small child. It helped me at work. It helped me in a lot of things, and it landed me 3 years ago to make the 6 months course of needs-based coaching, and now being part of the team. So that was really enriching. And last year, I was somehow, okay, what do I do? Do I really want to stay in this international organization? There is a lot of good thing, and I learned a lot, but I was also aware of I don't really enjoy all the administrative burden that I'm encountering there, and I would like to have more freedom and more creativity. So I decided I make a break. I made a program called Lead the Change. So that was a year training. Decided, okay, I'm going to go self-employed as trainer, a coach. And in summer, like you, Pernille, I read about the IDG and I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Like reading the thing was like, oh, but that kind of cover with NVC and with coaching. And I didn't think twice, which is normally what I do. But in that case, I just signed up for the ambassador program, and luckily I was accepted. So I went to Stockholm on a really beautiful island in November for 3 days with about 20 people from everywhere around the world and different walk of professions. And yeah, so I learned about the IDG, the organization. And IDG, as we said, stands for Inner Development Goals. But I just want to make a step back and speak about the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. It is a framework that has been decided in the frame of the UN by the General Assembly. in 2013, and the implementation started in 2015. So it's about how do we achieve a world that is sustainably and that sustainable and that flourish by 2030. So it's about, okay, we don't leave anyone behind. In 2030, there is no poverty, there is nobody hungry, everybody has good health and well-being, there is quality education. I'm not going to read everything, but it just for you to know where we are coming from, where this is coming from.
And yeah, and Ondine,
So
I'm interrupting you here because this is actually a quite amazing framework. Quite amazing that for the 100 and is it 92 countries in the UN that undersigned these 17 developmental goals, that they actually agree that this is what we're going for. That is so amazing. And I know in my local trade network, and that's where I have that badge from that I showed you right before. We've been working with the SDGs, but the thing is, it's not changing anything. It's more something we are talking about, and then we say, yes, we have gender equality, or yes, we are taking care of. So it's not like a prompt for improving, not here at least. And I wonder if that is if that is what people are realizing after having had these beautiful goals for 10 years.
yeah, well, actually it was intended as being a prompt to acting, and it's not, yeah, it is difficult to really complete it. And that's why I just want to continue with one question. I will share again and ask you what you think, like how far are we to reaching these goals? Okay, now I cannot.
Yeah, we see the 17 goals now.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem that I can
Switch it to the
push
next.
it. Oh, yeah, now. No, that's not working. Sorry.
You'll just go to the next and then share again.
Yeah. So the question is, what do you think, how far are we in reaching these goals? So now it should work. So who thinks that we are 80% on track? Wolfgang says no with the head. Who thinks maybe it is 55%? Maybe?
Yeah, I
So,
know.
and we think it is 16%, and 16% it is. So unfortunately, in the report from the UN in 2024, they found out that we are only 16%, like only 16% of all the targets from these goals are on track to being achieved by 2030. So it is kind of an urgency because we only have less than 5 years to go. So maybe a question to everyone. What do you think is the reason? Because Pernille, you just also mentioned, like, we have this thing, we are working on it, but nothing is really happening. We are only 16% on the targets on track. Why is it so? Do you have an idea? We can start a conversation a little bit on that, and then I will continue. Does somebody has an idea? Maybe that's just too big.
Yeah,
It
I
could
would
be
say
that.
it has a
Oh.
lot to do with money. That
Mm,
unless, I mean, that is sort of the general driver of development in the world, that if there is a possibility of earning money, then things happen. If not, then there might be some funds and grants that would propel some evolution, but it doesn't really happen by itself. That would be one reason.
yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the reasons, as presented by the inner development goal, is that mainly the way we try to solve the problem is actually the problem. So I will share again. Because like the way we have framed this sustainable development goal is it based on a system and a paradigm of a society that is based on assumption and on way of interacting and with one another, but also with Earth. That is the problem. That might be a little bit of a provocative thought. And I'm aware that I'm kind of caricatural in what I'm presenting on the next slides. There is a lot of nuance, but if we go in the detail of each of the nuance, it's going to be very complicated and too long. But I guess it has also to do with how our system, our society, our world is organized. It is organized on growth, like growth is our God, so to say. So the capitalism system is aiming to growth. And in such a system, which is the fastest way to win more? It is to care less and to sacrifice more. So I know that is really provocative. But if you look at this pyramid, like if you want to go on the top of the hierarchy, you need to kind of push. That is this elbow mentality that we also talk a lot and that we hear a lot about. And that's why there are a lot of scientists that are looking at this thing and trying to find out, okay, we want to solve the problems, we want to achieve a sustainable world, but we are still working on this growth that is not really helping us. And they are describing multiple crises, which is also a relational crisis. And they talk about the three disconnect. There is the disconnect from self. So a lot of humans on the earth are just not connecting with themselves. So that's what we are also doing as coach. We are trying to at least contribute to solve this disconnect. There is a disconnect from others. So with this growth mentality and with this sacrifice and care less, it's difficult to connect with others because otherwise we wouldn't do that. And there is also a disconnect from planet. Like we, as a global species, we consider Earth as a source of wealth. We extract wealth, but we don't really relate to it. And so these a lot of these scientists came together in 2019, 2020, and they discussed about this problem and they said, okay, what is happening? How can we achieve this goal or work toward achieving or coming closer to these goals? And maybe you know some of them. There is Christine Wamsler, was really a very well-known scientist on the topic of sustainability. Or Otto Scharmer, who has written the theory U, and he also talked a lot of the three divides. And these scientists gathered together and wrote a manifesto called the Growth That Matters Manifesto. And that was, so to say, the birth hours of the IDG. And then it developed in an organization which is nonprofit and open source. And the mission of this organization is they phrase it, we bring the power of inner development in all global challenges faced by humanity. And they're starting out with one survey, with one question. And the question was, so coming from the observation, we are not on track. They sent a survey, what abilities, qualities, or skills do you believe are essential to develop individually and collectively in order to get us significantly closer to fulfilling the Sustainable Development Goals? And there were more than 1,000 people that answered this survey, and the survey is still going on because they just try to gather even more inputs. And that's how they developed the framework that they call the Inner Development Goals.
Okay, so
And
let me just recap what you just said. So here we've got the 17 Sustainability Development Goals about clean water and equal right to education and all these kinds of things, the 17 with the different colors. And then there were all these great thinkers. You mentioned some of them. I saw Dan Siegel was among them as well, who said, hey, come on, we're not reaching them. We need to change the mindset of people in order to start actually moving towards this. And then through this survey of, in the beginning, 1,000 people, you said, then they developed these inner development goals.
yeah,
Wonderful.
exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, from the survey, the answer that came, that was more inputs on abilities, as I said, from the question. So qualities, abilities, and skills. And they gathered and they put the thing together, clustered them, and they came out with 23 skills that are significant for achieving the goals. And I think it's really important to talk about skills, because skills are things that you can learn, that you can practice. And they cluster the skills in these 5 dimensions. So it can seem to be a little bit superficial to put this dimension, because one skill can go there and there. It's just to help understand them better, to have this cluster. So as you see here, there is the dimension of being, so the relationship to self, so to bridge this disconnect. There is the dimension of thinking, so that is everything which has to do with cognitive skill, perspective taking, being able to not think only with your opinion, but take the perspective of others. There is a skill of relating, so that is how to care for others and for the world. The dimension of collaborating, so that all the social skills, and the dimension of acting. And for example, under the dimension of acting, there is a skill of courage and the skill of optimism. And I find it really interesting, because one could say, I'm not courageous and I'm not concerned with this, or I'm not optimistic. But they are skills that you can train and you can practice. So I find it quite giving hope somehow. And I really like this graphic, because it showed that the SDG, which is the symbol outside, if it's only directed to the outside, is void and it's not working. And if we put the inner development work inside, we have a better chance to achieve the SDG and bring sustainability to our world. And there are some critics around, why do we think about goals? Like, when it's inner development, it should not be about goals, because goals has to do with the growth. So it's, from my perspective, it's about talking the lingo that sustainability experts are talking. If we cannot achieve the goals, and we need to bring inner development work, we still need to talk the lingo, because otherwise they will just think we are esoteric people or like pink washing, and we need to be taken seriously. So it is about, yeah, when you talk about a framework, there is a kind of professionalism, there is seriousness around it that helps the buy-in. So, and that I had showed it before, but that's what we were saying. So these scientists, and that's the message of the IDG, is we can't solve today's problem with the same mindset that created them. Okay, so I will close for now and just check if there is for some questions, some reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious too to see how, I mean, this is adding another set of goals. And I know both under the 17 sustainability development goals and under the five inner development goals, there are lots of sub-paragraphs. So it's really an enormous bunch of formulations about what needs to happen for our world to be more sustainable and socially just. So perhaps I'd like to ask, what's your level of overwhelm? If you're very overwhelmed by now, please raise your hand. If you are medium overwhelmed, it would be here. If you're not overwhelmed at all and just saying, yes, of course, that's the way we need to walk, then you'll just lower your hand. Let me see some hands. Yeah, okay. Not totally overwhelmed, but medium kind of, or lower. Okay, wonderful. Yeah. I must say that for me, knowing that this exists and not just as small pockets here and there, but with these great thinkers who have access to great funds and governments and I don't know what programs, skilled graphic designers and I don't know what, then I do feel hopeful that this is a movement. It's not just a manifest. Yeah. But Ondine, I don't know if this is too early to ask, and if you will get to it later. So then please just kick it to the corner. But how does this apply to everyday life?
We can start a little bit the discussion and continue later, because I was about to make the links between the IDG and coaching, but well, maybe I return the question to the group and ask if someone feels inspired to, what can I do? What kind of inner work can I do to be a better human on this planet? And I can start with one thing that has followed me or accompanied me in the past years, and Kirsten knows it too. I was once on a training in Wales. I think it was in Wales, and someone introduced me to the Thanksgiving address by the Haudenosaunee, that is an indigenous tribe in the USA. And that is also called the words that comes before all else. So before starting a day, before starting an important meeting, they gather together and read a Thanksgiving. So starting with, we thank each other as human for being here. We thank the earth. We thank the keeper of the medicine knowledge. We thank the plant. We thank the waters. We thank the sun. And that is a way of reconnecting with the living world and with earth. And that is something that I've been carrying when I'm in community, when I'm in a training. I wake up in the morning and I say to the people the day before, please come and read that with me. So it seems not really meaningful or not really impactful, but for me, it's my small way of reweaving this connection to Earth. And Kerstin, you are your hand.
Yes, I have lots of questions. What is at the moment very present, and lots of kind of stimulating questions, not like I need an answer, but let's wonder together. What just came in is like, how does religion, what part does religion play? Because when you say a good person, I probably understand something very different than a man somewhere with a very different religious background, what a good person is. Or I'm also curious who made, or like what is the mix of people that made these inner development goals? Because they seem very close to my heart, but I just know that the world is very big and very diverse. So, uh, yeah, you're nodding. So anything that you can add to this, I would be just really curious.
Yeah, so there is one critic that has been and that is being voiced towards the IDG, that it's quite Eurocentric.
Mhm.
So mainly the respondent where white people, like a lot of Swedes, because the organization started off from Sweden. So the network was in Sweden and has, so they are putting effort in reaching out to more people in different continents. But yeah, so that makes it like maybe less globally valid, and still so maybe I didn't say a word, but when I was in this training, so there were people from Argentina, from Brazil, so it was diverse in some way, and we are still connected, and there is different hub in different region and different countries where people are trying to translate the exercises. Like there is a bunch of exercises to practice these skills. And when an exercise is more Eurocentric and makes sense in our context, but not like, say, Argentina, they are trying to find to translate the exercise that they make sense in another context. And that is something that during the training we were talking a lot too, was context awareness. So just be aware that your audience might have different reference point, and you don't have the truth, they don't have the truth, but find the openness in yourself to meet them where they are, because we really don't want to be the one teaching, and that's really different and difficult to embody, and I'm aware of that. Does it help somehow?
Yeah, it brings up more questions of how can this not be the next colonialization coming from Sweden and being spread in a different language to different countries. And I'm sure there's a different awareness nowadays, or I pray that there is, um, because we don't want to change the same problem with the same solutions, right? Or something like
Yeah.
this. That would just be again one of, but I notice I am curious to look more into this. And thank you for your explanation. And I see Pernilla's finger up.
Yeah, because I enjoy this aspect of the discussion a lot. And then I'm also thinking in many areas of the world, it's about mere survival. And they are very heavily hit by climate change and weather conditions and poverty. In our part of the world, and perhaps in particular in Scandinavia, I'm Danish, so I can I can wave my hand to the Swedes right over there on the other side of the water. Um, we have the obligation to do something about it because we have all our basic needs met. We have access to information and we have the bandwidth in some way to do it. So for me, it's not so strange that this is where the initiative comes from. And yes, I hope I can trust that those who are driving it at all times are responsive to whatever feedback they get from the not so wealthy countries. Do you know anything about that, Ondine?
Like from what I sensed during the ambassador program, the 3 days training, I really had the impression that they really take it really seriously. So it was really put on the first day, we are a learning organization, we are open for feedback, we learn from each other, please give us feedback. And I had once a feedback, like we had an exercise around I don't exactly remember, but it was about, yeah, about gratitude and about we should just like, no, I don't like this, we should, but just let in the gratitude of, okay, I am having a bad day for whatever reason. And if I were in a war zone, I might be happy to have this crappy day in my safe place. And I noticed that there were one person coming from a war zone, and this person couldn't relate with the exercise. She really felt left out somehow. And I took my courage and went to the facilitator and say, hey, I have a feedback, and I wished some more sensitivity and some more checking before offering an exercise if it's fit for everybody. And I think it's really difficult. And it was really taken really graciously to, oh, thank you. I really forgot about it. I didn't think about it. So yeah, I have a sense that they really mean it. And I think it's a really good starting point.
Yes. Thank you.
And yeah, shall I go on with the different dimension and how I see them relate with our different Wolfgang wants to say
Wolfgang
something.
has something.
Yeah, so to be honest, I do not know very much about IDG itself. And still, I would like to bring that little challenge here. It might be seen as a little presumptuous that some smart people say, okay, here's the new way, here's the new modality to boost our activities. I mean, there are already so many things out who could also claim something like this. So I'm just thinking about a quote from Marshall Rosenberg that he said, my need for food will not be fully met until the last person on this planet will have met their need for food, just to give an example. Yeah? And I'm not sure if NVC is fully appropriate for boosting the compliance with the SDG goals. But I think there are some modalities already out there. So
yes,
have they been checked? If they were, why is there a need to start something new?
I think there is like, yes, is that true? And I cannot really fully answer the question. My understanding is that there is, I think it's also around the momentum. There is a lot of initiatives, but if they don't take momentum, it doesn't go really further. And I guess it's like every now and then a bunch of people try again to bring a new boost or a new momentum. And it seemed that the IDG have done a really good work in the communication, graphic communication, and the movement is quite big. So there are quite some enterprise and firms and business entering this movement and partnering with it and learning and trying to bring into the business world. So that is, yeah, maybe that's not the full answer and I don't really have the full answer, but that's more my assumption around it. Kerstin.
Thank you. And I just want to add to this and also share my understanding from Undine, what I have understood, and also why we from the Needs-Based Coaching Institute were like, oh wow, yes, this is really something we want to be close by. That they don't offer modalities, that they offer kind of a framework. They put it into words, but they don't tell you how to achieve it, or this, or like NVC, do NVC and then you can listen better, or like they just make clear that listening to each other is an inner dimension that is really, really worth developing. But how, they don't say how. And this is why you as an organization who works towards something like this might feel really drawn to saying, look, we are doing this. This is one of the inner developments. Is this your understanding too?
Well, partly, and they're also having how is it called? There is a global leader training. So they also developed exercise taken from different kind of modalities and movement and stuff, and they bring things together and then try to bring it at the broad bandwidth with to business, to people, to say, okay, there is all what you could do. And for me, it's also, maybe you cannot do everything at once, but go walk the path. Pernille.
Yeah, and I've followed some of the information calls they've held as well, and I had some of the same concerns. And I've also seen pieces of nonviolent communication and pieces of theory review and of everything there. But what dawned to me was that they have big companies as partners, like IKEA. And I think one of the big oil companies as well. And I was a little bit like, what? You can't be serious. And the answer I got when I asked this question really made my day, because they said in any big organization, there are employees who have this agenda than you and I also have. And with this framework, they can work from the inside of the organization with creating some change of mind between people. And the big organizations like IKEA and Volvo was there as well, that they allow it and they sponsor it within their own ranges, is just a sign that the world is ready for some change now. So I like that.
Yeah. And Wolfgang is saying, writing, a cynic would say, you have to burn some money for the ESG annex of the annual report. There might be part of it. There might be some pink and green washing and painting and whatever, but what I try to do, because otherwise I'm just stuck in this pain for the world, and I feel stuck and paralyzed. I try to stay in the hope, and to stay in, as long as much people as possible are trying to bring that forward, there is hope. If everybody is saying, okay, we will not do it, forget about it, I find it really sad and really depressing. But I completely can hear that there is some concerns around it, and there is also question in the organization about how can we avoid people green painting their report and just be there for the sake of doing business or polishing the image and stuff. So that are concerns that are here, of course. So I will continue with bringing some my take on how can coaching and which path can contribute to which dimension. And that is a little bit superficial, because everything is really interlinked, but that is the thing that are for me the most obvious path for the dimension, and we can continue discussing about what you see and what is your take. So for example, on the being dimension, I think that the pathway is everyone in the it is a pathway in needs-based coaching, exploring needs and values. So that is really important, to know who you are, what is your inner compass, and what is your need and values, what are your values. It is an important dimension. And as a coach, even if you're not needs-based coach, a lot of coach also work in exploring the moment and exploring what are you feeling as a client, who are you and who are you becoming. So that is where we, as coach, support the dimension of being. When it comes to the dimension of thinking, as coach, we can accompany our clients in a creative way and in an intuitive way to develop different perspective on one topic. So let's say somebody say, I have this core belief, or I have this pattern and I'm stuck in it and I never come to get out of it. So we can accompany our clients in inviting different views on this problem. And with needs-based coaching, it would be the expanding the view pathway. When we go to the collaborating dimension, so that would be all the work of coachings around with a systemic lens. So what is the system? Who is the client in the system? What is the relationship? So that is then engaging the system pathway. And I think I forgot one. Yes, the relating dimension.
Yeah, you said collaboration, but you meant relating.
No, collaboration would be engaging the system that would help also. And for
Okay.
relating, I was more thinking of all the inner part works that we can accompany as coaches, because that would be more in the relating with oneself, so with the inner family system. So that would be the embracing the shadow pathway. And the last one, the acting dimension, that would be what, like, there is, as I said, different way and path to support our clients in being able to act. For example, that would be something around envisioning the future. So, and more generally, as a coach, and especially, or I don't know if it's especially, but as needs-based coach, what we do is also to support the self-empowerment of our client, to support the alignment so that our clients are better able to act and to contribute to a hopefully sustainable world.
Yeah, when you explain it like this, I understand why I was so excited about the inner development goals, because they are actually putting the work that we've been doing for years into a much larger framework that has a reach that is far beyond what we could have reached by ourselves. So we want to we want to have a handle in this because this is basically what we've done all the time.
So yeah, and I just so for me it's quite similar. When I read about it, I really felt like a sense of homecoming, like, oh, I belong here. And at the same time, being home and still being on the way. So it would be being home in a caravan or something like that, because you are not home and you stay home protected and closed up, but like you are home in your community and you have this home base where you can find your strength, and then you can contribute and continue learning, because you are never done learning.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a personal dilemma that I would love to hear how the IDGs might inform my next step in that. Would you be open for that?
Let's tell me your dilemma, and
Yeah.
then Wolfgang was showing, so we can take him.
Okay. So only a few days ago, I was at my foot lady. So I've reached an age where it's so sweet to have a foot lady fix my feet every 2 months. And the thing about this foot lady is that she's very talkative, and she belongs to the opposite spectrum of the political arena than I do. So that combination, having some viewpoints that are provocative and undigestible for me, and being very talkative, so much that at one point she stopped treating my feet and just sat and spoke for 20 minutes. And that was when I made the decision to find another foot lady. But when I went home, I thought, I cannot just be in my own echo chamber all the time. I need to find a way I can tolerate, or a strategy, an approach, an attitude toward her, so that I can actually exercise my desire to be the change in the world when I'm meeting her. Do you have any input for that?
I completely understand and I completely resonate for that. For me, it's also very difficult to listen when somebody is obviously having some opinion that are really diametrically opposite, like very racist or something like that. And I guess maybe it's around just see the humanity in this person and maybe if not, I think an exchange of arguments will not really help, but I was inspired with a friend of mine. She kind of gave herself the challenge of going to a place of gathering, like a bar where a lot of people from the FPÖ, this is their far-right party in Austria, are gathering, just to give the challenge of meeting them instead of being in her echo chamber. And she said it was really, really hard. And at some point, I don't know, she asked a question about something you really like or some place you really like, this person really liked. And he was sharing about how much he loves, I don't know, some lake somewhere in the Alp or something like that. And there she was like, oh, there is also a human person behind his opinions, his political opinion. And there is a
Yeah.
human who likes the nature as much as I do.
So to find
So
those
maybe
places
this is
where we actually are in alignment rather than stumbling over the disagreements. Yeah. Yeah.
that at least it would foster the humanity and the shared humanity, even if we don't have the same
And as you
opinion.
say that, it just dawned to me that if I'm looking for the shared values between her and me, I would need to be curious. And I noticed that I
Yeah.
was not curious about her. I was just trying to guard myself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Thank you for this little piece.
Thank you for the question. Wolfgang, you showed up and you wrote in the chat. So is there something you want to add?
No, this was just backing up what Pernille said, yay for human commonalities. I was going to ask, so I saw a lot of excitement from you, Pernille, when you said, yeah, that's what we've been doing all years long. And so I was wondering, are there people out there who want to improve on IDG and they don't know where to turn to? Are there opportunities for coaches? Is it that why you're excited, or is it something else?
So this is a question for me.
I think so.
Yeah. I
One of
think
you.
my excitement is that the IDG movement offers us a way to talk about what we've been talking about all the time, but with another audience than who are our usual audience. So, I mean, having this deck of cards that some IDG coaches offer, and offer them as a conversational tool in companies. I would never be invited to talk about nonviolent communication, neither to give a short intro to coaching. But if I say, let's have a sustainability conversation, and it's basically coaching questions. And it's possible to moderate it. But because you have this beautiful graphic layout and identity behind it, and that I don't have to invent that by myself, I'm excited about just being able to lean into what somebody else has created and do what I basically know I'm good at. Just call it something else. Yeah. Kerstin, were you wanting to say something?
Uh, no, not really. I was just when Ondine talked about, or you also about different political opinions, and then I think about Austria and what's going on in Austrian politics at the moment, and I'm very loudly wondering, or I just see so much potential.
so much need for something.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And
Mm.
I hope I'm not blocking your flow in any way here, Ondine. I'd just like to hear some of our people who haven't spoken yet. If you face something and you would like to hear how the IDGs might shed some light on what you're facing, could be in relationship to the world around you or your inner or more personal world. Yeah, Elena.
So, hello to everyone, and thank you for this interesting evening. And yeah, I've heard of IDG already 1 or 2 years ago. And then I read the list and said, oh, here we are with another list. And so I was not attracted as Ondine has been. And of course, now I'm hearing you, so that's why I was curious. Okay, let's hear what's going on because I never dig deeper. So the first was another list of eco people, eco concerned people, and so on. And I am too. It's not that I'm not. And I noticed that sometimes I get really frustrated. And while you were talking, what I was thinking is, yeah, maybe the right wing has the glue that puts people together in a faster way. And if we are thinking now of these approaches, we are, as you said, in echo chambers talking only to ourselves, as the right party do also. But also, I don't know, the whole presentation I was thinking, yeah, when you were speaking on of people sitting, indigenous people sitting together and expressing gratitude. So that sense of togetherness, then I can see how communities, eco-villages are trying to mimic that, but this is not the way either, because yeah, it's not sexy for the majority of the world to live in that way. So I have many questions. So is this the right way to go? Is it just coaching? This was another question. Do we need to do something more fancy, more inclusive, more engaging for all sort of people that are not just eco or greenwashing or whatever? So yeah, sorry for being long. I'm a little bit tired. I hope I was clear. I was just throwing out all my
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah, thank you. I'm hearing all these connotations and branching out in different questions. And I see Heike has her hand up too, but let me just see if I can sum up or conclude a little bit on your question, Elena. So something about what can we actually do that has an effect when there is so much that needs to be done? Would that be a fair way of concluding?
Yeah, and maybe the question that I keep having open is this approach also systemic? Is it done within groups, or is it just one-to-one again? And then I don't see it as effective, I
Yeah,
think, personally. Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to
Well,
answer first, Ondine, and then we hear from Heike?
And thank you,
yeah.
Pernille, for summing it up.
From my understanding and from the contact I'm having with some of the other ambassadors, some of them are really working in big consultancy firm or working with big businesses and bringing these skills and practicing the skills with managers, with people in big businesses. So I like, if it's your question one-to-one or not, it's not necessarily one-to-one. As coaching, that is what we mainly do. We work one-to-one, and it might be to work one-to-one with somebody working in wherever and say, okay, I really would like to do, and maybe I don't dare because they will all laugh at me and they will all think I am a naive person or whatever, and try to find a way to still be courageous and dare and try. So I think there is two, and depending on where you act, what is your work, the core of your work, your positioning, your niching, you find your modality. Does that help you? Does that answer your question somehow?
Yeah, what I'm
Partly.
hearing is that there are big consultants working with big companies, and there you can see that it's a more systemic work. Did I get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's how we
Definitely.
frame it and where we go with this framework.
Yeah, I guess if we go from the foot lady and into IKEA and Volvo, and there are all the all the other sizes of human interactions in between, it actually invites us to do what we can right here now, whatever the context is. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Heike has had her hand up for a while.
Yes, thank you. The examples from you helps me a little to localize where I am while listening, because the food lady is on the one side where I am really deep in contact with some of my known people who have really opposite opinions, and where I don't understand, and we are right in front of elections in Germany, and also I'm living in the city, which is this year the European main cultural main city.
Capital.
And we have a very big opening 2 days forward on Saturday, and there will be lots of demonstrations between not between groups of racists at the same time to groups for peace and for equality and all the goals. And I ask myself, isn't it a kind of a bubble where I'm looking for these goals, these IDGs, and doesn't reach the people who are so angry and so pointing with whoever have guilt in the world. And I'm helpless in a way how to reach these people who are so convinced about they have the right to blame all the other people. And even the organizers of this main city, cultural main city, and to deny everything. And it's really, I can't see the small hole where to get through and to come between the two parts, polarized, to get them into understanding and to come together in a way of understanding or listening even, or just to see each other as, yes, as you say to the food lady, as human being. That's where I am now. I don't really have a question, but I'm standing and listening.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that piece. And I would like to ask you, Ondine, and I don't know if you have an answer, or it could be a question to all of us. What do we do about disillusionment? When we've started, do the SDGs or IDGs, do they support us in disillusionment?
Well, yes, I think so. And I guess by receiving the question, I'm sitting with even more puzzlement and question myself, because I really don't have all the answers, and it's just humbling to sit in this complex world, and there is no answer. There is only trial and error, and that's a little bit, or maybe a lot, frustrating, but still, I think, and that's what we also talked during the ambassador program, that we are in a complex world, and a complex world is defined by the fact that there is no one expert having the answer. It is defined by, if you ask 10 experts, you will get 10 answers. So it's just about, it is complex, and and we try our best, and I don't have a definite answer, and I feel a little bit puzzled
Yeah.
and filled with more questions.
And perhaps I'm somewhat relieved that you don't have an answer to that question because it's so big, and complex issues don't have easy answers. They have complex answers. Yeah. Thank you. Wolfgang, you have your hand up.
So my experience from NVC is, first of all, I read a book, and then I did 10 years nothing with NVC, and then I found myself in a practice group, and that's where the fun part started. And so as far as I've understood this IDG framework right now, I'm wondering who is rolling that out. Is there a standard setting body like the CNVC? What are courses? Right now, it seems to me that something had been printed on paper, and I'm not sure if it's too anemic for me.
If it's too what? Sorry?
Bloodleer, too bloodless.
Oh.
Bloodless, anemic. Mm-hmm.
No, I wouldn't say that. Like, and I think that is also the dilemma of the organization itself, of the organization of the IDG trying to contribute to a complex world, to solve the problem of a complex world when you don't have one easy answer. So there is the organization that is the IDG Foundation. It is, as I said, open source, non-profit, and there is a network of hubs. So there is a hub in, I don't know, in Vienna, there is even different hubs. There is different hubs in Austria, in Germany, in Brazil. So people getting together and taking the framework and sitting together and say, okay, what can we do with this framework? And there is, I know personally someone animating the hub in one city in Austria, and they had once a anger experiment room. So just as one of the event they did to contribute to the IDG and to spreading the word. And so it can be really very diverse and small and big under this umbrella. So I would not say it's anemic. I would say it's maybe headless, or there is a lot of heads, and it is a challenge of not wanting to duplicate a hierarchical system and still keep the spirit and the intention, while at the same time wondering, are we too Eurocentric? How can we open it? So this is really complicated.
Yeah, and as I understand it, it is a lot of prominent people with access to grants and funds, and then the intention is to collect materials and offer it on as shareware, as open source, which I find very, very sympathetic. And there are lots of consultants earning their money on it, and that's up to them. That's fine. Then they're spreading the word and earning their living while they do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ondine, did you have more slides for us, and we need to make sure you get through them, if that is the case,
No,
or you did get through them?
I'm through them, and I was thinking of making a small meditation if we have time, but I'm not sure for the last 15 minutes if it's appropriate. So let's go to Kerstin, and then we can see.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It's such a juicy topic. It's like really opening up and how and what, and I would like to just offer my understanding and what makes the IDG so attractive for me. and check if that's also, because we've now talked a lot about doing. We've talked a lot about how can I step in? How can I offer this? How can I do the next room? And I notice I'm really not attracted if it's about that, going out and doing more and creating. And what I understand and what is so attractive for me, it's about being. It's about really arriving in yourselves and trusting that from this place of alignment, we make the best decisions, not just for ourselves, but for our families, workplaces, and for the entire planet. And that is what I see in a huge alignment with needs-based coaching. And that is what's really attractive for me, because if I think of doing more on top of everything and the state of the world, I feel very deflated. Could you say a few words about this? If I am kind of going into a completely wrong illusionary direction, or if that is in some way also the understanding of IDG.
Well, I think we really talk a lot during the ambassador program about really being and being in connection with ourselves, though that is also a very important part of it. And I think it is important that when one feels appealed and resonate with the IDG, one can find his or her way of embodying it or using it or doing or being with it. So there is so many way of going the path. And if it's being, and I find it being enough.
Yeah, and I'd like to tie something to what you just said and what Kerstin said. So I've spent most of my 63 years as a climate or environmental activist, sometimes more passive and in periods of my life very active. And then I found my own personal development path, and it became sometimes like, do I belong to one community or do I belong to the other? Because it wasn't the same community. It was either you go for outer change or you go for sitting on a meditation cushion. And what I like that seems to be happening these years in different areas, and probably why the IDGs have popularity, is because they bring it together. We need to start with ourselves, know who we are, so we can look that foot lady into the eyes and say, oh, interesting. And how is that? And how come? And what would be the consequence of that? Without needing to defend myself because I'm just all jittery. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see some nodding
And
heads.
And I want to add, like already talk about this Thanksgiving address and reading in community. And one of the things that really touched me while I was on this island doing the ambassador program was, it was only 3 days, but each morning we would gather at 7 in the morning with the elders. So there were 2 elders, like being there with our group, taking us in nature for 1 hour. And it was, I would describe it as mindfulness in nature. So nature was part of the program. And it was really embodying this this call to reconnect with nature,
Yeah.
with earth. And that makes something with me when I go in the next park for my walk. I can go with something, plug in my ears and listen to the next podcast and just being self-improving and learning and think. Or I can go without it. I can go walking slowly and every week notice the changes. I can go and notice the colors. And I can go and say, oh, thank Mother Earth. And that's changed my being, and that changed the energy field. And I hope it doesn't sound too esoteric and I have an awareness that could be, but it made something with me. It made me more soft to have this awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, so this bridging the divide that so many of us experience between us and nature, us and each other, and all this that also
Yeah.
Otto Scharmer is talking about. Yeah. Okay, we're close to closure now, Undine, but when we prepared
Yes.
this talk, there was a question we agreed that I would ask you by the end, and this is coming now.
Yes.
So, what can we do now? We've been inspired by you here, and you still sit with this major knowledge and sense of this whole movement and what the objective is of it. So, what can we do, each of us, as small people in each our circle?
Hmm. Well, I think we already talked and gathered ideas, so it can be. And one of the things I also experienced this year, it was, I don't know if you know the organization The Week. So there are screenings, it's a 3-part documentary about the climate crisis, basically. And it can be done online or in person with a group of people. And it's a short documentary followed by a guided conversation. And going, like step by step, you come to it support us to find what do I want to contribute to the climate crisis, well, to solve the climate crisis with joy. Because a lot of the time we just feel like that's such a burden and we just want to hide because it's just too heavy. And maybe there is some small contribution that we can do with joy. So that is also, for me,
Yeah,
that is also a step.
that's what the week is in a very structured program, which is also open source, that any of us can invite a group of people for the week in 3 meetings within a week. Yeah, brilliant. Yes,
That
I'd love to do
would
that.
be
I'm
one
already planning
idea.
it. Excuse me.
Great.
Yeah. And I remember you also said something about notice what you do that's joyful for you, because we need people who are more in joy about what they're doing in this world, and joy will
Yeah.
foster more joy. Hmm.
Yeah. And gratitude is my thing.
Yeah. I would like to add just now, I won't see my foot lady within 48 hours, but I would like to give myself the challenge and you as well. Can we have one of those dialogues with people we meet in our everyday life, not parts of our echo chamber necessarily, that just pushes the limit a little bit for our usual polite, non-provocative conversations? Just ask one naughty question or one wondering that might take the other person slightly into a new line of thoughts. Yeah. So we got a few things to do. In the Needs-Based Coaching Institute, we certainly also have our menu card. And is it okay for you, Ondine, that we close this piece of the conversation and leave it to,
Yes. Sure.
yeah. So Kerstin, can you
Thank you.
tell our video audience as well as our present people right here what we've got in the pipeline?
Thank you. Yes. And I really have a desire to add something. I'm such an advocate for the non-doing to just announce, yes, we can talk to them and we can tend to our nervous system and be regulated. And I think it's such a big impact in the world nowadays if we don't play along with the stress and the drama and the tragedy and the the activation that is just everywhere. I think meeting someone with a regulated nervous system is already a political act, and that has a lot to do with the inner development goals. Okay, let's go to just a little bit of announcement. The next possibility to be with us is our info call. In between, we have an advanced module for people who have studied with us. Some of you who are on the call are going to join us. That's wonderful, where we deepen our reach into trauma-aware coaching. But for people who are interested to just hear a bit more about the Needs-Based Coaching Institute, the 6-month foundation training, the philosophy behind, there is a info call planned on the 4th of February with Pernille and me, where we have a coaching demo, lots of space for questions, and give you all the information. And to not make this list too comprehensive of announcements, let me just say that we are launching something new, brand new to us. And I think it's also inspired by this real call for reaching more and more and more people. So we are offering Module 0 for the first time, a language of the heart, an introduction into nonviolent communication. It's coming up on the 19th of February. The first time in this institute, not the first time that we are hosting NVC introduction, but the first time under the roof of the Needs-Based Coaching Institute. And there's much more going on. Please have a look on our website, www.needsbasedcoaching.com. I think this is everything, unless you have something to add, Pernille.
Well, I do have just one thing to add, which is thank you, Ondine, for I know you prepared yourself, you created the beautiful presentation, and just for showing up and enlightening us with your inspiration. Perhaps I took you off spotlight a bit too fast. Thank you so much for being with us and for being a part of our Needs-Based Coaching Institute.
Thanks for the invitation. That was really great opportunity. Thank you. And thank you for all the participants and the viewers for the interest and the questions. That was really cool. I appreciated it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you to our live audience. And thank you to our virtual audience who is watching this as a recording. Don't forget to stroll in and have a look at www.needsbasedcoaching.com and see if there is something that that awakens your appetite there. So let's unmute ourselves and say goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Dankeschön. Tschüss.
Bye.